I didn't. So that's it. But now, I want everybody to do something that most people don't want you to do at conferences. I want you to take out your mobile phones, your smartphones, okay? You have it? You have it? Okay. All right? Now?
Can I have mine?
Okay, I want everybody to stand up, please. Stand up. Okay. Okay. So, we've got our mobile phones, we're waving them, okay? Does everybody know the song? I've got the whole world in my hands. I've got the whole wide world in my hands. I've got the whole world in my hands. I've got the whole world in my hands. Okay, now it's you. I've got the whole world in my hands. 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 Good, good. You are excellent singers. Thank you, thank you. So, you know what? You really do have the whole world in your hands. And I had to borrow Savas's smartphone, which I promise I'm giving back. Because I'm actually more into satellites. So, but everybody can do something today to change the world for the better. And that's really what I'm all about, is, I still don't know if I'm doing this thing right. There you go, okay, okay. So it doesn't matter how you decide that you're going to change the world for the better. It might be in health, it might be in renewable energy. I just heard about the construction, which I think is great, and that entrepreneur, kudos to him or her. Logistics, manufacturing, eradicating poverty, whatever. Whatever you decide to do is possible. And I loved what Emra just said now about entrepreneurial system being fair and being democratic. And yes, I think in some parts of the world where I grew up, for instance, in the United States, where it's probably, I was grown up with this thought: if you could do anything, if you work hard and you work well. And I believed that. Some places you don't have the freedom to think that, and there are barriers. But at the end of the day, I think even if you are a barrierless thinker, you can come through. And my family, I'm sharing a little bit about you with my family, and why is that? Because Emra, again, and last night I did get late to the cocktail party, but I was there, and he was sharing that you're going to be expanding to Israel. You already, of course, have expanded to France. I'm very, very proud to be a founder of the GBA, etc. But my dad was so poor in the Depression that when he went to school, they said they were having a collect for the poor child in the school. And he came back that day and he told his mother, he says, "Mother, I don't have anything to give for the poor child." Well, of course, my dad was the poor child. And he went to live the American dream. He became the first youngest general in the peacetime. He created the Israeli venture capital community. In 1990, he went to Israel at the invitation of Chaim Herzog. He looked at the kibbutzes and he said, and the Russian scientists who were leaving Russia because the wall had just fallen down, so they had intellectual property, he said, we can do something here. And he is today a legend in Israel. There are 50 trees planted for him. And my mother was a Romanian immigrant, and she was love personified. So many times in entrepreneurship, we forget about love. But at the end of the day, love is when you have the worst days of your life, and your mother calls you, and she says, "Honey, don't worry, I love you." And that's important. So, also, one of the reasons why I love Turkey and I love Turkish people is that when I was growing up, my dad was in NATO. And so the Turkish generals would come to our home and they would bring me Turkish delight. And my mother and father always said, these are the most civilized people in the world. So just imagine, being able to come to Turkey. I have been on the board of Sabancı University for 10 years. I was very proud to have helped start Innovent and the Galata Business Angels. And so, but I can tell you, I come here and, it is, the Galata Business Angels have just gotten so far. It's amazing. So, indeed, also as Emma says, you start when you're young, you do lemonade stands, you try and figure out, you have to do a business plan. My dad always said we had to do a business plan. If we wanted to be a class president, we had to do a marketing plan. So, we learned. We took advantage of being with people. My best friend was 60, I was 8. He had the largest ham radio station in the United States. And so I used to go and call around the world with him. And this is why I got so excited about telecommunications, because you could do wonderful things together. So now, this is a very strange picture, but it's important, because that little thing that looks like a flying saucer I received when I was 5 years old. And that was in 1957. So I'm 62 now. That was 1957. Does anybody know what the year 1957 was? Bravo. You get my vote to be part of the collect. Okay, absolutely. It inspired the world. Also scared the out of the United States, but it inspired the world. And particularly, it inspired young people like me. I was 5 years old. And that little Sputnik has Santa Claus inside of it. So I thought that every single good thing coming out of space was like Santa Claus. So, and that's how I got hooked on space. And this is my Christmas tree. And every year, I put my little Sputnik on that Christmas tree. So it's kind of fun. And now, we're talking about barriers, right? And we're talking about things that don't exist. So when I grew up, and I was doing satellites, and I was doing classical music in the United States, and when I married my husband, who, as you could see beforehand, he was the Luxembourg ambassador to the United States in 1981. Well, we got married in 1981, so he's a little bit beforehand. And, he was a classical musician. So that's how we got together, because I was a classical musician. I learned satellites and telecommunication at home, and I went to study university. And his country had a problem. They were only, does anybody know how many people are in Luxembourg? 18. No. Today there are 500,000. In 1981 there were 400,000. There are 999 square miles. It is one of the very, very small countries. And this country had been dependent on steel, and then dependent on banking, and then dependent on broadcasting. But in 1981, they had a steel, a financial, and a broadcasting crisis. And the prime minister, one of the fathers of the euro, was looking for solutions. And so I told my husband, I said, Luxembourg could have a satellite system. Now, this is 1981. In Europe, there were not any private satellite dishes. There was no private telecommunications. There were no private broadcasters. So, it was easy. And it was easy because it was so unimaginable that people didn't even take you seriously. And so it was also during the Cold War. And everybody's minds were blind. They were just looking at this part of Europe. They were not looking at that part of Europe. But I was calling behind the Iron Curtain at age 8 with my friend who was 60. And so for me, I always thought, well, of course, I've spoken with those people. I've spoken with the people behind the Iron Curtain. We're going to do our satellite coverage zone to cover all of this, all of Europe. Now, it took a little while, and I'll share with you with that later, but the fact of the matter is, so we launched our first satellite on December 13th, 1988. Which is pretty good because we had the idea in 1983, 1985 we incorporated, and 3 years later we launched our first satellite. Now this is talking about $100 million, okay? We got money. I'll tell you the fun story about that in a little while. So now, what happened on November 9th, 1989? Thank you. You guys are good. A little bit slow, but good. Okay. So the Berlin Wall fell down. And you know what happened? Because we had dared to dream, because we had dared to put money and energy and power to our dream, we were the only ones who covered all of Europe. Nobody else could cover all of Europe as a satellite system. And the one thing that every single person in the new side of Europe wanted was satellite television. They wanted to see. And we became, within 1 year, the most profitable and the largest satellite system in Europe. Yeah. But you have to believe. Now, this is a fun picture. I'll just show you this because, of course, nobody believed. And quite frankly, how many women are there in the audience? I want you to all stand up, please. Women. Stand up, women. Okay? No, you're not supposed to stand up. Okay. Oh, good. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, okay, excellent. That's very good. Okay. So now the problem with this picture is that there's only one woman, okay, which is me. That's me. I look a little bit different there, okay? And this is my cute husband. Very cute. Okay. This is our Grand Duke. This is our Prime Minister. I mean, so can you imagine, here I am, I've told Luxembourg that they could have their satellite. We're all in Kourou launching the satellite. And, you know, I look back at that picture and I think, oh my God, if it had not worked, what would have happened? But I never ever thought about that beforehand, just afterwards, thank goodness. So now, it's one thing to become number one. It's another thing to stay number one. And the only way that you can do this is by always going to the next horizon. So in 1995, we were the first, SES Astra, my satellite system, we were the first, by this time we were this was our 5th satellite, and we were launching, you see the logo is up there on the top, Astra. This was the first ever Occidental satellite to be launched on a Russian launcher, Proton. Now this was beautiful because we were talking about international peace. And remember I said, okay, we became number one in Europe in 1990 actually. But you know what? We did our IPO in 1997, so 14 years after we started. So you guys who are angel investors, you know, sometimes it's a very long haul, but let me tell you, everybody got 100 to 1 if they had invested in Astra in the very beginning. But after we did our IPO, we were so rich that I was worried. I thought, we're going to be taken over. And here again, the only way to go to the next horizon was to go global. And so I put together the program to go global, SES Global, in 1997. And everybody was afraid. Nobody wanted to go global. They thought, no, Candace, we're fine. We're just number one in Europe. That's good. We've done our IPO. We're rich. I said, no,
somebody's going to take us over. We've got to go to the next horizon. We'll get too fat. So buy or build, I decided little Luxembourg, right? Little Luxembourg should buy GE Americom in the United States, which we did. And I had the idea in 1998, I worked on it, and in 2001, we then became the world's largest satellite system. So you have to always go forward. Now, look at this. Can you imagine how difficult it was to raise money for a private satellite system? As I said, there was no private satellite dishes, there was no private satellites, there were no private broadcasters. This gentleman, Count Roland de Kergolay, he was our first angel. He put in $1 million. $1 million. His family owns 10% of the SES today. It is worth $1 billion, okay? Took a while, but let me tell you, and we couldn't have done it without him. He made the difference. We could not have gotten started without a business angel. And nobody else, no venture capital, there weren't any venture capitalists in 1983, 1984. Nobody would take it, so he did. So, as you can see, I like satellites. I've done a lot of things with satellites. Now I want to talk a little bit about Raspberry Pi. Does anybody know about Raspberry Pi? Good, okay, excellent. Raspberry Pi is a $25 computer, and big things right now are impact investing. Well, I'm not so into impact investing, but I am into making the world better. So when Raspberry Pi got started with Jack Lang and Herman Hauser, I said, hey, I want to put this in the Arabic language. I paid $2,500 to get some Arabic friends to put it all into the Arabic language. 1 year later, this is the telecoms minister, and this is the education minister, or I might have gotten it confused, in Lebanon. We had students who put together, they bought the Raspberry Pis for the kids in Lebanon, put together a program, Youth to Youth, for coding and programming. And now the Lebanese government has decided to put Raspberry Pis in our program, Youth to Youth, into every single Lebanese school, and is and it is also going into the Syrian refugee camps of UNICEF. An investment of $2,500. This is one of my happiest investments. I love this. It makes me so happy. So here again, I want to show you as entrepreneurs and as angels what you can do. A friend of mine, Vivian Rading, the vice president of the European Commission, she started European Business School, Women on Boards, or I actually started it for her, and we then became global. I want all of you to think about going global from day one. You can see it's something I have done all of my life. I have 2 more minutes, so I'm going to go real quickly here. The Pacific, so this is a fun story. Here again, I was giving a speech, and by the way, I'm here all day, and I'm going to be doing the mentor clinic and everything. I was giving a speech in Geneva at the ITU, and 2 young New Zealanders came up to me and they said, wow, Candace, satellites and internet, that's so cool. We have terrible internet connectivity in New Zealand, and we want to go to Australia and ask them if we can get some satellite connectivity for New Zealand. They're 30 years old. I said, don't be ridiculous. Start your own satellite. We got all of the women in the islands in the Pacific to come together with the Global Telecom Women's Network, which I started 23 years ago. We have started OWNSAT, Oceania Women's Network Satellite. We are the largest shareholders in this system, Pacific, which will be, as of 2017, you see all of those islands. It is impossible to get fiber optics to these places. We are doing it. We're putting beams, literally beams of internet connectivity to these places in the islands, in the Pacific, so that people can have, e-government, e-health, industries, you name it. And very, very important, the climate change is bringing so many problems to these islands. Some of them will not exist, but at least through our satellite communications, they will know that when it is coming, and we can save lives with it. So as I leave you, I just want to kind of share with you another project that I'm working on. As you can tell, I do love satellites. But you know, whatever makes you tick, it doesn't matter. It can be health, it can be mobile, it can be education, but do it with passion and do it because you know it's going to bring about a change. So this is the world's first ever hybrid laser and satellite system, okay? So it's technology developed by ESA, European Space Agency, and by NASA in the United States. And what basically, laser goes, has a throughput 100 times that of high radio frequencies. So just imagine when you combine the power of satellites with the power of laser in this fully integrated mesh network. And what we are basically doing is you can see very clearly where there are no internet backbone fiber. And so we are basically blanketing the world with internet connectivity, and we'll actually be able to provide internet connectivity to these loons, that Facebook and Google are doing. So that's really kind of cool. So, these are my ABCs. I have them on my desktop, in front of my real office every single day. A, avoid negative sources, people, things, and habits. B, believe in yourself. I love D, don't give up and don't give in. J, just do it. M, make it happen. N, never lie, cheat, or steal. I do love Q, quitters never win and winners never quit. Think big, think international from day one. Choose your shareholders correctly, but if they're a Galat, a business angel, they'll be wonderful. Focus, focus, focus. And I really do believe that if you believe, you can make it happen. Thank you so much.